George Lopez is the star of Lopez vs. Lopez. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby. Wanted to kick things off by asking you, George, what is your favorite thing about this show?
My favorite thing about this show would be Mayan Lopez,
Yeah.
my daughter,
Yeah.
who, much like when I was 11 years old and started to write jokes and start to, draw pictures and things, that when Mayan was, I think, maybe 12, she said, I want to be on Saturday Night Live and I want to go to Chicago and study at Second City, which she went to Second City and got in, studied, and there's just one more thing for her to have happen. I think that could happen. Amazing.
Well, what have you, because so much of the show is about your character's relationship with her character, and it's built so much on your real life relationship. What have you learnt about her from working on this show?
Well, I think there's absolutely there's boundaries that every actor should have, but also as her father, I don't think it's my job to correct her or to add any of my opinions to how she is particularly playing her character, which wasn't even going to be a question, because I just know from knowing her that I would better leave that to the director. And when we were starting a year ago, when you do the pilot and you try to get the pilot picked up, I mean, multi-camera acting was really new to her, but she was working hard. And I could sense that one comment, maybe even taken the wrong way, would be something that would be detrimental to her as an actress. And I just didn't even want to come near that. So, she's been amazing. The directors and all the writers and everybody there, the actors have been great with her, but she's ultimately, part of me and her mother, that they're two very dramatic, very funny people. And I think that it goes a long way in someone. I'm very proud of what she's been able to do in this last year.
Yeah. Now, like, the show is built upon sort of pain in your guys' relationship, and working through and processing that. Like, how do you think sort of comedy is a tool in addressing pain and conflict and things? Because the show deals with it in a very funny way.
Even some of the shows that I like, I think Soap, Billy Crystal and
Yeah.
Kathleen, and Richard Mulligan was a bit out there at that particular time, and I could probably say that was a little more, in a sense that, I love Sanford and Son and I love the Partridge Family, but they were dealing with, Chico the Man, and whatever sitcom weren't even coming close to the gravity of a father-daughter relationship. Maybe 8 is enough, but to be able to tap into something that's so personal in these times where everybody seems to find something negative about a person's own personal life choice or personal opinion, that the fact that this show has resonated so much, and you're dealing with a fractured world. So fractured relationships make sense.
Yeah. And with you sort of approaching scenes and stuff, when it was stuff that cut close to the bone, or was difficult, do you need to be careful in how you approach that? And was it sort of quite raw for you having to go through some of those scenes?
I think Debbie Wolf, who was a showrunner, of the show, I think mine laid down kind of the line early on, like we wouldn't cross this line. So, and also she was not aware that you could say to somebody, I prefer that we not do this way, and not have it be a confrontation. Is that you can just tell somebody respectfully, maybe we could, not have that in there. I think I'd be okay. We found some other thing to do. So learning all those things that, I mean, early on in my first show, I was really very, very green. And then I had a guy, Frank Pace, that was the line producer, that really would tell me, he said, listen, man, you're going to come to work and everything's going to drive you crazy. You're going to want to take on this person, you want to take on this person, you want to take on that person. But I will tell you when you need to be upset. Otherwise, just relax. But I won't let something get by you if I think it's something you need to get involved in. Otherwise, this thing is it's gonna drive you crazy. And it would. If you didn't have somebody there to tell you what was important and what to let go, I think I think you've seen actors go crazy. I think actors have left shows. I think people have let successful shows to never get another successful show again. So, it's really you never think an opportunity like that would be in your lap and you'd say, I'd never do this. But when you see people who have left shows to not ever get back to a show or to never really reach that degree of notoriety, it seemed really to self-implode would not just seem that it just doesn't, it's nothing deserves you taking yourself out of like such an opportunity.
Mm. Was there a scene that was particularly sort of challenging for you this season, or for the first season of the show?
We did a Christmas show where I love to drink in the show. I don't drink as much anymore. I think the show has helped me kind of curb my drinking. But the fact that they would go on and have Christmas traditions without me, which is what really happened, is that Christmas was always very big in the house when mine was growing up, and not so much when I was growing up. So when I was married, I would say this is way too much. Like this is way too much stuff. Multiple trees, in every room, and incredible amounts of gifts and food. It's like it's way too much. And when I wasn't around, it was zero. Like Christmas was zero. But also the fact that they still went and did the not too much, the way over the top Christmas without me. So the idea that in this show, the first season, the Christmas episode, was that they would do the things that they would do without me. And the fact that I brought most of the cast from my first show in as extended family was something that was really, really, just from another world. I never would have put it together. I never would have seen a show like that.
Yeah. What feelings were going through your head when you're sitting around that table with your current show cast and your past show cast all together? What were you thinking?
Man, so many of my dreams, were in my own head. I would say, I want to do this. And even when you did it, it's still something that you would only you would see. You would say to somebody, I always wanted to do this and now I'm doing it, but really only I'm seeing it. But with everybody sitting around that table, everybody got a chance to see what my dreams were. That I would be sitting around a table with all the people from my first show, and then all the people from this show, and then mine was 5 or 6 when that show started, and that she would be on this show with me. And Bruce was Helford, who we did the first show with, is also involved in this show. It's just that's probably I've done things, but I think that might be the most meaningful episode of TV that I've seen or done.
Yeah, and bringing these two shows together was such a big part of both of them, such a big part of your life.
When we were doing the table read, like the Valente, the friend, was there, and the mom was at the table read, and we got to the line where I opened the door and it said "Hello, family." At the table read, I got emotional. It took me forever to kind of compose myself to even do just those 2 words. That was really, because I'd been away from them for so long. And then there we are again in something familiar, and it just, it's 2 words. Hello, family was a very difficult thing to get through.
Oh, and it was fun to...
Maybe one day I'll do a show where it doesn't matter. To me, everything I've done, everything mattered. I could say, I'll tell you when to worry on, when not to worry on, who to fight and who not to fight. It would just be great to just come to a show and just be like, see you tomorrow. You don't have to carry these things with you, but it's really, it's kind of those things that you carry that make the trip worthwhile, I think.
Yeah, I think it's true. I spoke with mine last
Yeah.
week, and she asked me to ask you. She thought this would be an interesting question. What have you learnt on this set compared to the set of your first show?
I think I learned on this set that I think there's a professionalness that I think goes further than showing up to a set and imagining that everybody's family. I think you can get a little misled by people's attitudes and by their tones and by their perceived commitment of work. And it's really work. So I was a little tricked the first time into thinking that we were a happy family, when I believe I would have been better served by just showing up and doing my job.
Interesting. She said one of the reasons she wanted to ask that is because she said you like, when you were in the first show and when you're in this show, so much has happened. You're in different places. In some ways, you're a different person. How have you grown since that first show?
You know, the first show, it was all like really green, very green. Like I'd never done an episode of a comedy, and I didn't know downstage, upstage, and what I would do after rehearsals, I'd go to the writer's room, and I'd spend a lot of time in the writer's room, and then on my way to my car, you would pass the stage, and I would go in there in the beginning, and I would block my scenes with nobody on the set. Like they would allow me in there, and they'd say, "What are you doing?" I was going over some stuff, and I would make the move to the refrigerator or pour coffee or walk across to the table or go to the office, do all those things, because those things were so foreign to me that if I was pouring coffee, I would stop talking, and they would say, "Hey man, you have to be able to, go get a yogurt and continue to talk, grab a spoon and continue to talk, and do all those things that are second nature when you don't have cameras aimed at you." But I realized that the minute I start to do a task, I would just stop talking and say, "Hey, man, and then I would go to the refrigerator, and I'd look at the refrigerator, I would talk into the refrigerator. They go, "No, you have to say, well, just let me find out what's going on." And then you come in here and you go back out. That there was so much of the choreography and the nuances of something that you wouldn't even think twice about, that were tells to people that I really didn't know what I was doing. So I would go try to eliminate that by staying over and blocking myself. And then the director of one of the early directors, John Pasquin, was in the audience, and he's like, and he goes, I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm doing the same thing you're doing, but with a pencil." Like we're going over his shots, and I was going over my moves, and he was doing the same thing I was doing. So I think the things that people couldn't see made that show successful, and in this show, it's the things people can see that made this one have such a great first year.
How has this show been helpful for your relationship with mine?
Yeah, I see her every day. I don't think we necessarily say goodbye to each other when she thinks she's working, I'm working, and I think she's never really been late. These kids, she can sleep a lot. Not being late and being prepared. I mean, and I would just say things like, there's no way to explain not being prepared.
Yeah.
So I think she understood that, thank God, because I would not want to have that conversation with any actor about showing up prepared. And it just becomes, I think early on, when you start to put the show together and you realize that I would say, look, if I tell them, if I'm not worried, then you shouldn't be worried. But it took 21 years to get that guy put me on that path where I would say, everything can be fixed, everything can be looked at, everything can be done, everything can be rewritten, and don't don't worry. If you see me worrying, then you worry. But until then, don't worry.
Now, George, from playing this particular version of yourself, have you learnt anything about yourself?
Yeah, I think I think what I've learned is, I really do have incredible feelings of appreciation and love for the other actors. So I would say that I've learned to be able to appreciate them while we're doing it. I mean, while we're in the beginning of the show, where before, I don't think I probably, when it was over, you realized how special it was. But I know from them how great they are, and how much fun it is for all of us to be together. And I think it made the other show more enjoyable when you think about them as well. But everybody wants to be there, and everybody that has described the show to other people who don't work on the show, or you hear about the show from other people, is that it's that kind of environment that is what draws people to want to work there.
What was the funniest moment for you from the season?
That the little kid Bryce Gonzalez. I mean, him and Selenis did a telenovela spoof early on, when we did an episode about not speaking Spanish, and Maya doesn't speak Spanish, and we went about it that way. But also in the finale, he comes down the stairs and really does maybe like a page and a half of dialogue, pretending to be me drunk with my hair and the shirt, and it's like a little version of me. And to see a 7-year-old kid just come down these stairs and stumble and then be me, and he's holding a hot dog, sitting on the side of his head with it, and he's doing this thing, and then he just says, "All right," and he just leaves. You're just like, I mean, that little kid is only 7, but he's brilliant. He's been brilliant already.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And what do you enjoy most about the show, George?
I think it's being with Maya. I think, putting down these things that will be there forever. I think making a show with Maya that people will always be able to see it. And it's great.
Yeah. Well, George, thank you so much for talking to us today. We really appreciate your time. All the best of luck for the Emmy Awards for Lopez versus Lopez, and for season 2. It's so exciting. You got another season. You've got renewed, so that's really cool. And people watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to follow our awards coverage. George, really appreciate your time. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you very much. Cheers.